What's up guys, it's Ivan, and on this channel I provide tips, tricks, advice, and strategies for your graduate school applications. So if you are new here, consider subscribing. In today's video, I wanted to share with you my higher education journey so that way you kind of get some motivation in terms of applying to competitive programs if you are unsure if you should apply. I know my journey to higher education wasn't as direct. I did not have the highest grades, the AP courses, the GRE scores, the GPA, and I still managed to get into a bunch of master's programs, including the Harvard Graduate School of Education and Columbia University, as well as some PhD programs. And I'm currently a second-year PhD student at the University of California, San Diego, where I am in a fully funded program. I also got admitted into Michigan State University, which is one of the top universities for higher education, as well as other programs that are top ranked in higher education, such as the University of Texas, Austin, as well as University of Wisconsin-Madison for education policy. So I wanted to share with you my journey to higher education, to the PhD. That way you gain some motivation and really just apply to these graduate programs, whether they're competitive or not. Just apply because you never know what is going to happen if you don't apply. So let's start off with high school. So in high school, I went to two high schools. So one of them was in California. I was born and raised in California in the Central Valley in the Fresno area. And so I went to an under-resourced high school that did provide AP classes, honors classes. But honestly, at that point in high school, I was really not considering going to a four-year university. I was considering going to the local community college and then transferring to the local state school, which was Fresno State. So I have always been a exceptional student, I guess you would say. So in middle school, I was placed in the highest math classes as well as the highest English classes. And so when I entered high school, I was able to take geometry my freshman year, which is only reserved for students that are high performing. And so I was able to do that, and then eventually was able to take AP calculus, and then I took pre-calculus and stuff like that. And so I was on track to get AP credit as well as honor credit. But then my family moved up to Washington State, and then we ended up living in a rural community, which was more under-resourced than my previous school. And so in Washington State, I went to a high school that was really small. It only had around like 150 students, including middle school. And in my graduating class, we had 39 students. And so out of those 39 students, only 2 of us went to a four-year university. We did not have any AP courses. We barely had any honors courses. My math class, for example, was one of those honors courses, and it only had 3 students, and 2 of them were international, including myself, which was a domestic student. And so as you can tell, I was not really prepared to engage in a competitive environment in undergrad at the university level because I did not have the opportunities at this rural school. So I ended up finishing my high school career with a 3.3 GPA, and I did not take any AP courses or was not enrolled in any advanced level classes because my school didn't offer it. I don't know how, but I managed to get into the 2 best schools in my state. So I got into the University of Washington in Seattle, and then I got into Washington State University. And so the only 2 schools that I applied to because I knew they were the top schools in my state, and I just kind of rolled the dice and I got into both. The University of Washington Seattle is actually a really good school that's nationally ranked, but they really focus on STEM, which is not what I wanted to do. So I chose to go to the other school, which was Washington State University, because I thought it fit my needs more than the University of Washington. In high school, I was not involved in really any extracurricular activities besides sports. I was highly involved in basketball. My senior year, my team went to the state tournament. We didn't win anything, but we ended up going there. So that was a good accomplishment that I put on my resume and my applications. Then I also volunteered at an English adult school, and I helped teach English to a Spanish-speaking adult in my community. And that was the only 2 extracurricular activities I did aside from academics. Now let's move into my undergraduate career. Before our undergraduate careers, all of us have to take placement tests, right? Usually it's math and English, unless you test out if you have AP, etc. But obviously I didn't, right? And so I took the placement tests for both English and math. And for English, I placed into college level English classes. For math, I ended up placing into remedial math, which meant that I did not have high enough test scores to be able to start off with college level mathematics. So what happened was I placed in one level before I could take college level math. And so we call this remedial math in the United States. And so what happens with that is that you kind of have to take this class to make up, it's like a prerequisite for your college level math. It does not count towards your requirement. It does not count towards anything besides the prerequisite for the college level math. So I took that class my first semester of my undergraduate career, and honestly I thought it was the best thing that could ever happen to me, because first of all, I did not have the skill sets or the knowledge to take college level math right away in my undergraduate career. And so this course really did prep me for that college level class. I ended up getting an A in that college level class eventually that second semester. So it really did help kind of like prepare me for the college level class, but also just fill in those gaps that I did not receive as a high school student. And so I tell this story because you might think that I'm an exceptional student because I'm in a PhD program. I went to Harvard, that I didn't have any struggles along my journey. But as you can tell, yes, I did. I ended up placing in remedial math. I had to work my way into being this student that I am now. And so I want you to take this from this video is, everybody has their own journey, and just roll along with it. Try your best, meet every milestone, ask for help, and you'll eventually get to your goals. Alright, so now let's talk about the bachelor's degree experience, so the undergraduate experience. Like I mentioned earlier, I attended Washington State University, which is in a small rural town on the border of Washington State and Idaho. It's called Pullman, and honestly, this university really made me who I am as a student and as a person. It provided me with a bunch of opportunities that I took advantage of as a first-generation low-income student, and it prepared me for graduate studies at competitive universities, especially the PhD. So in undergrad, I was involved in 2 research studies. One of them was to this program called the McNair Achievement Program, where I was placed with a faculty mentor that I chose who conducted work in the field that I wanted to get into. So my field was education. My mentor was part of the education psychology department, and he was able to guide me through a research project that I did. And so I did this 2-year project on Latino father involvement and how Latino fathers are involved or not involved in their children's educational pursuits, higher education pursuits. And so that really shaped the way I view education and the field that I wanted to get into as a graduate student. And so I conducted that work for 2 years, and within those 2 years, I was able to publish the work in a undergraduate journal, as well as present that research at multiple conferences, including this one at Harvard University, which exposed me to Harvard and elite institutions. And so that experience really shaped my research, my interests, and really my interest in education policy as well. Then that summer, so I did this project, like I would say, junior and senior year. And so that summer of my junior year, I was able to get into a competitive program at the University of Arizona, where I went out there and I was paired up with a faculty mentor who I still speak to now as a PhD student. And he guided me through another project, which the other project was on Latino males in higher education. And all these projects that I did do are things that I'm still interested in now as a PhD student, and things that I still explore as a PhD student. And so I did that summer internship with my mentor, and he walked me through the process. And at the end, I was able to publish my work again, and then I was also able to present that work at the conference at the end of the workshop, or at the end of the internship, as well as other conferences nationally after I was done with the experience. And so my undergraduate experience at Washington State University really exposed me to research and how research can shape education policy and practice. And that's where I began to think about graduate school post-graduation from my bachelor's degree. In my undergraduate experience, I also had the opportunity to study abroad twice. So I went to Spain to learn the language and the culture, and obviously I already speak Spanish, but my Spanish is really more Spanglish, and so I wanted to sharpen my skill sets so I can use Spanish in the professional field. And so that's why I went to Spain to learn the language and the culture. And then I also did an internship in Japan where I developed and implemented a summer camp for military children. And again, that ties into my education field. And so, so I really liked my experiences studying abroad. It really allowed me to look at education on a global perspective, as well as gain the practical skill sets to be able to succeed in a PhD program in education. So as you can tell here, a theme with my undergraduate career is that I try to get involved in things that were that were really about my interest, which was education, and my future career, which is education, right? And so I want you to do the same thing. I want you to construct your undergraduate career in a way that's going to help you in the future. So make sure that if you are interested in STEM, for example, that you do a bunch of STEM related activities. That way you're able to put that on your resume and your CV for graduate schools, and you're able to write about that in your personal statement or statement of purpose. In undergrad, I was also involved in various internships and extracurricular activities that were in my field. So I worked as an admissions counselor at the admissions office where I gave campus tours. I also was an ambassador for my college, so the College of Arts and Sciences, where I was able to implement programming for the students there. And I did a bunch of other things. I was an officer for the College of Education National Honor Society, and I also volunteered on the side mentoring underserved students. So all this stuff related to my field of education. I ended my undergraduate career with 3.49 GPA. When I took the GRE for graduate school, I didn't really study. I did have a prep course during my University of Arizona internship, but that was a year ago before I took the GRE. And so honestly, I didn't know how to study, and honestly, I didn't put too much weight on those test scores because I already knew within myself that I struggle with standardized testing. So I focused my application on other aspects of the application versus the GRE. So I went to go take the GRE just because it was a requirement, and I ended up scoring really low. So I have other videos on this channel where I actually share my GRE scores, which you can go check those out. Just to kind of wrap up that I scored really low, but was still able to get into a bunch of programs. So in my undergraduate career, I got 2 degrees. So one of them was a Bachelors of Arts in English with a concentration in teaching. And then my second bachelor's degree was a Bachelors of Arts in Foreign Language and Cultures, which was focused on Spanish. With my English teaching degree, I was able to also pass the state test to become a certified teacher, and so I did that, and I did student teaching, and then I got my license to practice teaching in the state of Washington, which obviously I didn't do because I ended up going to grad school right after my undergraduate career. So during my undergraduate career, I applied to 10 programs. 5 of them I was not accepted into, and the other 5 I was. So I was accepted into the University of Arizona Higher Education Program. I was accepted into Harvard Graduate School of Education Policy and Management Program. I was accepted into Columbia University's Teacher College for Education Policy. I was accepted into University of Washington Education Policy. And then my last one that I was accepted into was University of Texas Austin in their Higher Education Master's Program. So I ended up choosing to attend the Harvard Graduate School of Education Policy and Management Program, and that was the next step in my higher education journey. So I completed a Master of Education in Education Policy and Management, and as an HGSC student, I was involved as an admissions ambassador, so I was able to help with content creation on their web pages. I did interviews, I helped with their prospective student events, I wrote on their blog. I really just helped out with the admissions and talking to prospective students and giving my perspective as a student. I was also a program assistant for this program in Cambridge called Cambridge School Volunteers. It's actually a nonprofit. It was located at a high school nearby, and so I volunteered and just helped out with their college mentor program that they have established within their organization. And I helped lead that and lead workshops and hire mentors and pair up mentors with students and help students get into universities. A lot of the courses I took at the Harvard Graduate School of Education were in relation to my topic, which is family engagement, specifically Latino family engagement. And that work stemmed from my undergraduate research as if you can recall, I did a study on Latino father involvement in the higher education pursuits of their children, and so that kind of led me to HGSC. My advisor is actually the leading researcher in family engagement, and she was appointed by Barack Obama, the president, when he was in term as the family engagement liaison for the Department of Education. So I got a lot of good training from her on family engagement. And really that's all I did at HGSC. That program is only 9 months, so that doesn't give me too much time to really do a bunch of activities because it's only 9 months. So after my master's degree and prior to my PhD, I took some time off. I took 4 years off and I worked a professional job. And the reason why is because honestly I was burnt out. I had been going to school since I was in preschool. So then since I was 4 years old all the way into until I was 23, 24 years old. And so I went to school straight, nonstop. And then when I was in college in the summers, I didn't really rest. So I was really burnt out and I didn't think I could pursue or want to pursue a PhD right after my master's because honestly I needed a break. So my break entailed me taking a professional job that actually fit still my interests, right? So I worked at a community college in Washington State as a director for a federally funded college access program. So I help students, with college admissions, transfer. I help retain students. I help them with a bunch of different things, attaining scholarships, educational planning so they could take the proper courses at the community college level and then transfer. So a lot of my work involved just college access in general and helping students just get to that next step in their educational goals. And I really enjoyed my job, honestly. Like it paid well. I loved my students. I loved the work I was doing. I liked the environment that I was working at. But I knew since I was an undergrad that I wanted to pursue a PhD. So I thought that 4 years was enough time for me to be able to take a little break, make some money, and impact the community, and then eventually pursue a PhD. And that's exactly what I did. So finally, this journey leads me up to now. So now I'm a second year PhD student. I'm actually wrapping up my second year as a PhD student at the University of California, San Diego, where I study education studies. Specifically, I look at college access and equity in the realm of transfer choice, and how to really, and transfer pathways. So how to really support students who start off in community college and want to enter four-year universities, how to make that process more streamlined and easier and more affordable is really what I want to do. And that work really stemmed from my experience as a professional. So I saw a lot of the inequities, the discrepancies in transfer from my students, and that led to what I want to do now as a researcher. So eventually I want to become either a faculty member or an administrator at a community college, like a senior administrator, so like a vice president, where I'm able to really make an impact on transfer. So I want to continue to conduct research. I want to make sure that I am the expert on transfer in my state. So I want to go back home to Washington and make changes in our community college system so that transfer experiences, specifically for rural Latino students, is more easier, and we're able to get more Latino students past the community college level into four-year universities and then eventually to professional jobs. So currently as a PhD student, I'm involved in a couple things. So I've been a teacher assistant or a reader for a bunch of the education studies departments undergraduate courses. So I do teaching. I also am a graduate student researcher for a couple of projects. And I also conduct my own research studies that are not really applicable to college access for undergraduate students, but it's more college access for graduate students. So really, the way in which I support all you here on YouTube is the research that I'm conducting on the side, aside from my main focus. So right now I'm working on a study with one of my colleagues that's focused on the first year experience for graduate students. So eventually, once I publish that article, I'll share it with you all, as well as maybe I'll make a video of the outcomes on that video. That way you're able to kind of gain some information on what the first year experience looks like for students, and what students do to make sure that they are able to succeed in their first year. And that's really what the study is about. We're trying to figure out where we can impede as institutions as programs, and we can support students during their first year. Alright you guys, so that concludes my video on sharing my higher education journey starting from my high school career all the way to my PhD program. Hopefully this gives you some motivation in terms of what you can do to potentially get into a PhD program or really any graduate program. I wanted to share this video obviously so I can give you motivation, and you can see how I did struggle early on in my higher education journey to attain higher education because of my background. So I identify as low income first generation. I come from a rural background, so I did have all these different factors that contributed to my to the discrepancies that I face in higher education. So I want to make sure that you do not feel discouraged to apply to graduate school or to apply to competitive programs, that you should just apply. Just apply because you never know if you're going to get in. When I applied to graduate school the first time, I did not think I was going to get in because of my GPA, my low GRE scores, and because I didn't really know what I was doing as a graduate school applicant. The only reason why I got into a PhD program and a master's program was because I applied. If I didn't apply, I wouldn't have been able to give myself a shot of even getting in. And so I want to encourage you to just apply and get that support from your faculty, friends, ask me questions, use my statement of purpose review service, watch my videos. That way you're able to prepare a strong application for graduate school. Thank you for watching this video, and I will see you in the next video.